I learned that song like 2 days before I performed it live. Oh my gosh, and I about puked every time I performed on the show. It was just...
In 2017, a shy 12-year-old girl from Oklahoma walked onto the America's Got Talent stage and stunned the world in a way nobody saw coming. Darci Lynne Farmer, armed with nothing more than a puppet and a nervous smile, delivered a performance so extraordinary it left the judges speechless and Simon Cowell visibly floored. Within seconds of her audition, the audience rose to their feet, and Judge Melby slammed the coveted golden buzzer, showering the stage in gold confetti and launching Darci from obscurity into overnight stardom. She wasn't just another contestant. She was suddenly a national sensation, the youngest ventriloquist ever to captivate a primetime audience with a mix of comedy, charm, and a singing voice that seemed impossible to come from a child. As the competition progressed, Darci's skill grew sharper with each round, introducing new puppets, bigger laughs, and unforgettable musical numbers that blurred the line between child prodigy and seasoned performer. Week after week, millions tuned in just to see what she would do next, and by the finale, her victory felt less like an upset and more like destiny. She was crowned champion of AGT's 12th season, instantly joining the ranks of the show's most iconic winners. The whirlwind that followed was nothing short of spectacular. A headlining tour that sold out across the country, high-profile appearances on Ellen and Today, and a media frenzy that labeled her the girl who brought ventriloquism back. For many, it seemed Darci Lynne's path was set. Hollywood lights, endless fame, and a career built on her puppets' personalities. But as dazzling as that confetti-filled moment was, the pressures of fame were already beginning to tighten around her young shoulders, and the journey ahead would prove far more complicated than anyone watching that night could have imagined. Behind the glittering confetti and thunderous applause, Darci Lynne's life quickly shifted into something far heavier than most 12-year-olds could bear. The same shy teenager who once needed encouragement just to perform in her living room was suddenly thrust into a world of cameras, contracts, and expectations that never seemed to stop. Overnight, she became a household name, and with that came the relentless pressure to stay perfect. Every smile, every joke, every note from her puppets had to be flawless. In later interviews, Darci revealed just how intense that pressure really was, confessing that she often felt so nervous before performing that she nearly threw up each time she stepped onto a stage. While audiences saw a confident entertainer capable of making millions laugh, behind the curtain, she was just a kid battling anxiety, unsure how to cope with the way to stardom. Her family did everything they could to shield her, carefully managing appearances and giving her space to breathe. But the demands of constant rehearsals, live shows, and media tours left little room for mistakes or for being a normal teenager. The image of the endlessly cheerful ventriloquist became a mask she was forced to wear, even as cracks began to show behind the scenes. For Darci, success came with an unspoken burden. The fear that if she faltered even once, the magic the world fell in love with might disappear forever. And soon, that pressure would lead her to quietly step away from the spotlight, sparking questions that left fans both confused and deeply concerned. After dominating headlines and selling out theaters across the nation, Darci Lynne's presence began to fade in a way that felt almost sudden. By late 2019, her once constant stream of TV appearances and packed tour dates slowed. And when the 2020 pandemic hit, everything stopped completely. The curtains closed, tours were canceled, and the girl who had once been called America's sweetheart seemed to vanish from the mainstream conversation. Fans who had followed her every move began to notice the silence. Instagram updates became rare, YouTube uploads less frequent, and the bright spotlight of Hollywood dimmed to a quiet glow. Whispers began circulating. Was Darci burned out from too many shows at too young an age? Had the pressure finally pushed her to step back? Or was something happening behind the scenes with her management and producers that forced her into retreat? Without clear answers, speculation grew. Some loyal followers assumed she was focusing on school and a normal teenage life, while others feared a deeper struggle, pointing to cryptic captions and long absences online. For someone who had once been everywhere, her absence felt loud, raising the question nobody could ignore. Had Darci Lynne walked away from the career she fought so hard to build, or was this only the calm before a surprising new chapter? As the silence stretched on, Fans started piecing together clues, and a darker picture began to emerge. One that suggested Darci Lynne's retreat from the spotlight wasn't just about school or growing up, but about something far more personal. Whispers of hidden struggles circulated in online forums, with speculation pointing toward anxiety and possible depression, issues rarely spoken about during her peak fame, but hinted at in small ways. Friends close to the family suggested she had endured a period of real emotional lows, and her sporadic social media activity seemed to support that theory. Posts that once overflowed with energy and excitement became fewer, sometimes paired with vague captions about needing rest or finding balance. Then, subtle but powerful hints began to surface. Darci engaging with posts about mental health awareness, liking messages about overcoming pressure, and even resharing content that encouraged others to seek help. For a young woman whose career was built on making others laugh and smile, these small signals spoke volumes. It became clear that behind the curtain, Darci had been fighting a battle that couldn't be solved with rehearsals or applause. And while her family never confirmed details, her quiet advocacy revealed enough. Darci Lynne had stepped back not because she had lost her love for performing, but because she needed to protect herself. Yet even as fans absorbed this painful reality, a new question began to rise. If she wasn't ready to give up entertainment entirely, what kind of reinvention was she planning for her return? When Darci Lynne finally began to re-emerge, it was clear she wasn't returning as the same wide-eyed girl with a puppet in hand. This time, she was reinventing herself. Around 2022, her YouTube uploads and interviews revealed a more mature side, with Darci speaking openly about growth, authenticity, and what it meant to outgrow the image the world had locked her into. The sparkly costumes and endless puppet banter gave way to raw, stripped-down performances where her own voice, not just that of her characters, took center stage. She hinted at songwriting, shared acoustic covers, and even teased new material that reflected her evolving identity as both an artist and a young adult. For the first time, Darci seemed determined to be seen not just as the ventriloquist kid, but as a full-fledged musician and storyteller in her own right. At the same time, she started engaging with her fans on a deeper level, discussing the importance of slowing down, being honest about struggles, and finding joy outside of fame. Some longtime followers embraced this shift, praising her bravery for stepping out from behind the puppets, while others admitted they missed the old magic and worried she was letting go of what made her special. But for Darci, the transformation wasn't about pleasing everyone. It was about reclaiming her career on her own terms, even if that meant risking the nostalgia that had defined her early success. And as whispers grew about what this reinvention might lead to, fans began asking, had Darci Lynne quietly prepared herself for a second act that nobody saw coming? Today, Darci Lynne lives a life that looks far different from the glittering chaos of her early fame, but in many ways, it's one she seems to have chosen deliberately. Instead of chasing constant national headlines, she now appears at select events, performances for local audiences, special church gatherings, and charity appearances that align with her growing advocacy for children's mental health. Her social media presence, though quieter, still offers glimpses of a young woman grounded in family and faith, balancing personal growth with a cautious step back from the spotlight. In 2025, there's no major record label pushing her, no high-stakes TV competitions, and no endless media tours. Instead, Darci seems to be carving a slower, more intentional path. She's been writing music, experimenting with projects that showcase her own voice, and using her platform to speak about the pressures of fame and the importance of authenticity. For loyal fans, these moments are a reminder that while she may no longer dominate primetime television, she hasn't disappeared. She's simply living life on her terms. And though some critics argue she let her momentum fade, others believe she's quietly preparing for something bigger. Reintroduction not as the child ventriloquist prodigy, but as an artist in full control of her story. Whether or not that second act arrives, one thing is certain. Darci Lynne has proven that stepping away doesn't mean fading away, and her journey today is less about confetti and cameras, and more about finding peace in her own spotlight. From the dizzying heights of confetti-filled fame to the quieter corners of self-discovery, Darci Lynne's story has unfolded as a powerful reminder of what early success can cost and what resilience can rebuild. She began as the child who revived an art form many thought was long gone, capturing hearts with a smile and a puppet, only to later reveal the heavy weight that came with that spotlight. Stepping away sparked rumors, concerns, and endless speculation, but in truth, her absence wasn't an ending. It was a recalibration. Now she stands at a crossroads, no longer the wide-eyed girl forced to perform under pressure, but a young woman redefining herself, advocating for causes close to her heart, and exploring music on her own terms. To some, it may feel like she has vanished, but in reality, Darci has simply traded the stage lights for a more deliberate journey, one where authenticity matters more than applause. And perhaps that is her greatest act yet, showing that walking away from the frenzy of fame isn't failure, but strength. As fans wait and wonder what her next chapter will bring, one thing is undeniable. Darci Lynne's story is far from over. It's just being written in a new voice.